and constantly finding engagements about spaces, about history, about culture, about arts. And we must give a round of applause to our professor of film. Yes, professor of film. I'm Tunde Kelani. Do you have anything to say, Deji, Toye? Okay, so the first thing I would like to say about the film is that this film is beyond the engagement of space. It's about the encroachment of concrete culture to history and memory. And it's also about, for me, it's also about trauma and how we as a people, from the lenses of Oleshoika and his family, continue to contest family personal narratives in light of the shocks of dictatorship and tyranny. And if you look at college life, you'll be shocked that there are politics and engagements that are influenced by outside talk, or what you could call outside influences. If you look at how Professor Oleshoika was denied of his professorship at the UI, you would be surprised that it is beyond just the exploration of professors. It's about an activist who was denied of, not just his flowers, but also his leverages. His family having to grapple with a lot, and the fact that legacy is being contested here. Legacy, extension of legacy, so there are many dimensions to this, and I have a lot of questions. First question I would like to ask is the question of sound. Oleshoika was a musician, and not so many people know that. So I was thinking that perhaps but perhaps why didn't you explore Ebrohimie's music in this film? Nigeria, the Nigerian song that Shoika sang with Ebrohimie. So, I was thinking that it would also be a way to foreground the several parts of Shoika that a lot of people do not know. Thank you.
What the sound? Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks so much. We appreciate this. To answer that question, I think the producer and director, Kola Tubose, was responsible for his choice of music throughout the whole film.
I have a lot of questions, but I'm just hoping that I should be able to explore all of that. There's this question of solitude, Shoika being a writer, and it's impressive that you explore solitude in a film and you are still able to hold people spellbound, because solitude is a difficult and daunting task. It's a difficult and daunting, uninteresting exploration, and you are able to hold down the audience. How did you explore solitude, and how did you look at it from the lenses of the demographics? What I mean by that is young people who are distracted by so much, and yet you are able to craft a documentary that has hold. This all was filmed. How did you do that?
Okay, actually this is my question for Kola Tubose, who directed the movie. But yes, if I can just chip in a little, or maybe going to the first question that you asked. Maybe some of the music you heard there was not written by Oleshoika, but they're actually songs written by people connected to him. I mean, think about Shebu Shibota was the last time you saw, who was part of that early, Ibadan drama, television and all of that. And then, of course, Barani Joy, by Uncle, the folklorist, Tunisian and so these are people who are connected, to Shonika in very, very close terms and it's an artistic practice. Now, what Kola set out to do here, presumably I can speak for him, but these are my words, so these are my own thinking about it, is that he set out to actually, and one of the things that piqued him was that he didn't know he had gone to University of Ibadan, he had studied in University of Ibadan, and was quite very active there. I think in fact he was the president or some official of the campus journalist, but he never knew of the existence of that building. It was later that he found out. And the photograph that you saw that became the core of that building, that photograph had actually been the cover of, it's a photography that was shot in the 60s. And it was in the cover of the Ibadan Kelani years that was published in 1994. We were talking recently, we found out that actually that cover was actually chosen in error when we were not interpreting it. Because Olusegun himself had thought that this was a photograph that was taken when he was living off campus, in Agodi. Because the events of Ibadan Kelani years was actually when he was off campus, much earlier before he returned to Ibadan, So if they were choosing that picture to illustrate Ibadan Kelani years, obviously it was chosen before he thought he represented that. And they had to argue about it, and Shoyinka insisted that no, it wasn't on campus. And Kola had to go and take the picture again, it's so many 50 years later, and show a particular crack, that was actually on the door that was there, even at that time. Now, he then went to the issue of memory, how it's easy to just erase some of this. You talk about concrete or material culture. Material cultures often hide history. Sometimes we have to go and uncover them and all of that. But then, even for a standing edifice, then our relationship with a standing edifice may also obscure a lot of things if you do not pay attention to the passage of time and to actually take time to actually enshrine them in our memory. Essentially, I think that was the original thing that led to him deciding that, look, it's very important, to make this movie and use it as a basis to interrogate different phases of his life, his politics, or political engagement, his academic career, and his family life within the environment.
I totally understand, because I went to UI for my master's, and Ebrohimie Road was not part of the places I went to. If I knew, and I did some projects in UI, atmosphere, which I started around that community, and I did not, it did not resonate with me because it was not spoken of. I was not engaged intellectually, and the melting pot at the time of my stay in UI was the staff club, So I'm curious. I only heard of the staff club when Mr. Idowu, the brother to the wife of Wale Soyinka, was talking, the ex-wife. For me, what my curiosity says is that what was the intersect between the staff club and that space? Was it that, like Wale Soyinka said, Nightingale, was the staff club an annex to the space, Ebrohimie, or was the staff club an outpost, for the drinking outpost, the watering hole of creatives? So how did those two spaces intersect? Or were Wale Soyinka's opponents at the staff club while his friends were Ebrohimie? Those are questions that a lot of us will not be able to answer. But I'm just curious, what was that engagement like between staff club and Ebrohimie, and why is there a silence for my generation that stayed in UI and worked in UI? Why was that silence? So I don't know if you'll be able to answer that, and Soyinka is not here to answer, but I think that we should explore that silence as well. So what do you think, and why was that silence not explored? Would you like to answer that?
Well, I thought we were sticking to the documentary. Yeah, and this time we spoke about the reality is that when you consider what we have learned from this, when he mentioned Star Club, it probably didn't necessarily mean that the one you attended, the one that you attended. So when it said Star Club, the environment has changed unless somebody is able to say this was the Star Club in the late 60s when this happened. And I also thought that it may not come out there. Why Soyinka is a very politically engaged and very social being? I don't know. A whole lot of his social life from what he even said there was probably lived, off campus in terms of going to the clubs or in town, engaging with non-academics, artists. He spoke about how they attended high life shows, Orlando Julius and the rest of them. So I think his life, while it was on campus, while I was teaching on campus, actually engaged a lot with the town in terms of relating with the television people, with the high life crowd. So in reality, I did not want to tap club that he actually did on campus. He himself said it here that he will return to campus home, very early in the morning to catch some sleep and then wake up the next morning to do that.
So I understand that I'm a troublemaker with questions. You've always known me. So I would like to ask Tunde Kelani, when did you meet Soyinka and what constraints did you have dealing with Soyinka? I remember when I went to Ife for my first degree, and I remember that some of his old students said that Soyinka had almost 40 students, and by the time of the first lecture, all of them dropped his course and there were just 5 remaining. So for you who has constantly engaged Soyinka and has become a friend to Soyinka, how did you meet Soyinka and how did you navigate those constraints?
I think my preoccupation, I am the cinematographer on the project, and rather than talk about meeting with Soyinka, it was my encounter with Ibadan itself that came first. In 1970, I was employed at the former Western Nigerian Television, Agodi Ibadan. And coming from Lagos and coming into the broadcast environment, it gave me the opportunity to meet so many people that later became mentors, and my elders. And even at that time, we had Orlando Martins, who had just been brought back to Nigeria after his acting careers, with Renarenia and all that. These are things that I read about, and to sit together with our great uncle, that for me was busy. Sense that Ibadan was everything. If you wanted to become anything in broadcasting or academia, chances are that you have to come to Ibadan first and then go back to wherever you wanted to go. And so I wasn't far away from the University of Ibadan. And in the documentary, when they mentioned that was shot by the police during the demonstration. It happened that Tunde was a friend to the late Dr. my friend. So almost every weekend I would find, if I had time, I would come to the University of Ibadan, to be with them. And so, Kola Tuboson's work is layered, so layered that he has connection with almost everyone that had known. And when we started, and then we went to produce Oleku. Oleku was shot entirely at the University of Ibadan. And I thought I knew every bit of the university at that time. And then later, 3 years ago, so went back to do Cordelia. Cordelia was entirely at the University of Ibadan. So I thought I had known every bit of Ibadan until Ebrohimie Road came. And that was a bit shock to me because I never even had it. You know, and this time around, it was going to be generally located at this particular street, at this particular house. And then of course connection card everybody else who was in that building. So my responsibility was not only just to match the interviews that were shot outside US, UK, but then to match it with the other interviews, a lot of work that we have to do here, and how each aspect of the documentary connects every character. So the idea, before we started shooting, I'd gone to look at the house itself, to feel it, you know, because so much of the story was hanging on this particular house. Why this particular house? Why this particular building? And then we have to consider what time of the day to feel particular segments of it. Will it be early in the morning? Will it be in the afternoon? And what does the interior of it look like now? And what are those? From the research, what are those environment, everything that have to do with behind the house of the house. So for me, it was education because it had so much aspect of history, and that's just an extension of what we do. Because first of all, it's to learn forever. You have to develop an empathy for the project at hand. You have to be able to visualize, imagine, and be part of this particular story. So it reached me in so many ways, you know, that now I'm better for it. Not only the opportunity, because I wonder why me, but then why not me? Because I have a connection with the subject matter, and almost everyone that was in the that made the story. As for meeting Professor Orishenka, well, he is one of the heroes that we dreamt of. In my time, we wanted to grow up to be like Orishenka, we wanted to be like Ogunde, we wanted to be like Taishola. We had so many heroes. And I pity young people these days. I don't know who their heroes are. Because I think they are left with only the politicians. You know, but in our time we had so many heroes. And as to what Orishenka said, encountering him alone, till today, I will walk and have a session with Professor Orishenka on any matter, and I have to listen to everything he's saying. You know, I see, and you know, young people, I brought young people to Orishenka, and while we are talking, they are dozing off. And I'm just pushing it, you know, and you know, so it's someone I had regarded as inspiration, an example of what is good about humanity in this one person. And at age 90, I'm still amazed that he can keep into very current, as current as you can have. Even remember the threats of the discussion you had 6 months ago. So for me, of course, I'm a member of Orishenka's ARI, Autonomous Republic of Ijeba. I'm a citizen. I don't need visa. Only some of you that never been there will need visa to other people.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask about foliage and fauna. We look at the film, we see the level of encroachment, and it's really, really traumatic. And especially if you link it to the newly traumatic destruction of the garden that I mentioned, the heritage garden UI. How do we reclaim all of this beyond the film? How do we reclaim all of this? In 2016, he was made professor in UI, honorary professor. For me, as an Ife person, first Ife, I think that is related. But how do we reclaim all of this? And what can we do as a collective to make it happen?
Thank you. This question also reminds me to finish an essay I started writing 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago, but that I stopped because I needed other things to do, but it also reminds me. And that was, I started writing it the week that Professor Deji was celebrated in Ibadan, and then the news came out of the destruction. In that same university where we were having a conversation around the decimation of some of the environmental heritage around the Shoyinka house, they just went and mowed down one of the iconic gardens. And how I started that essay is, University of Ibadan has to not know the humongous heritage that it has and the responsibility on that university. When you really ecological imagination, in fact, I consider him a pioneer of eco-critical literature. Because at the time that you are coming up with, the concept of eco-criticism, it was in the 80s. And he wrote that marvelous collection of poems, The Eye of the Earth, in 1986. Now, when you consider that what inspired that collection, which Ibadan should be proud of, which Ibadan should be showcasing, was actually part of it was the environmental heritage. In fact, if you read the biography, the one that was written by E. Sule, I mean, you will see that in the poem he spoke about Ikere Ekiti, where he grew up. But the fact is that a whole lot of time when they couldn't travel back to Ikere, it was in the botanical garden and in places like the Heritage Garden that he actually went to, just disappeared, to just soak up and have that reminiscence of being in the natural environment. Now, imagine a university then destroying that kind of thing. It's almost like a city, a town destroying, almost something that stands you out, that distinguishes you. You are talking about Ife and Ibadan. If Ibadan knows what it holds in regard to, how, the place it has in terms of the heritage crowd, the sheer number of people that went there, I mean, not the number, but the quality of people that went there. I mean, it's good that has produced, the Ajibe, Clark, Okigbo, and the rest of it. Even listen to the documentary, that road alone, when you consider that road alone, the people who lived on that road, we are talking about Shoyinka, who created the first theatre department in Nigeria, transformed a school of drama to a theatre department. You are talking about Mabu Nje, who was founding father of, geography Nigeria. You are talking about Oyawoye, you saw there. Oyawoye established the geology of most African countries, including Southern Africa. Now, so when we are talking about that particular house, you're talking about the street. I don't think about other streets. Think about the rooms that these people lived in. I mean, these are the kind of things that you go elsewhere, you see flats. People want to come to Ibadan because of that. Because I want to live in a Shoyinka room, because I want to live in Teda, or because he was in Teda. They want to visit all of these places. So it is the lack of awareness of not just people, because the people in management in Ibadan today are a product of it's all of us. The idea that you could be educated to a certain level and you still don't have an understanding of this in terms of things of heritage, that you do not carve out, part of the house of a Shoyinka and sell it to a bank, so that a bank would fence it off and break the fence, and then so that it can face the road. It's something that all of us need to ponder about, and I think that's why this documentary is also very important, especially the last part of it, which then spoke about the historical and environmental heritage of that particular environment. It's something we all have to concern ourselves about. I'm happy that we are also in the place of history that is being restored and the Randle Centre. This precinct is actually the center of Nigeria, and the government house is there, facing, if you want just 5 minutes, facing the marina is where the entirety of Nigeria was governed. Just down the road, you see the Queen's prison that been turned into. So we are actually sitting in the presence of history. But how many of our children knew this? You understand? How much of this history do you just drive on the road and see and say, oh, that is where this was, this is where this was? Just down the road is Global Hall. Global Hall is where the nationalists, you know, that's where Azikiwe will speak. That is where Ogunde would perform a play that will get him into prison, you know, all of that. You know, and we pass all of these places every day. Those have not been torn down, if they've not been torn down and turned into banks and all of that. So this is the challenge of this kind of documentary for us to really think about it and what we are doing to our historical and environmental heritage.
Yeah, please.
So I will ask one more question before I ask someone. There's someone from Starting Bank who wants to say something. Yeah, and some people also want to say one or two things. But I want to ask Mr. Kelani about history. Ebrohimie, that word reminds me of the Ebrohimie expedition of 1894. You know, and it has to do with the punitive action of the British government against Nana Olomo. You know, and here we have again another punitive measure of not just the colonials, but the post-colonials, the tyrannical placeholders, you know. Orúkọ Amaro become, meaning that perhaps should we consider a change of that name so that we do not continue the cycle of, you know, punitive measures, because even the management and all of those actions that have happened in the Ebrohimie Road is punitive of the people that have lived there. You know, so Olukwama will become, we do think that we should consider changing it to perhaps Evolution Car Road.
Well, in my opinion, I think it should be left as it is. It's a treasure. It has become part of our heritage. And changing the name will be destroying the history and all the circumstances that made that place what it is today. So I think it should just, I'm always concerned when places are changed and named after people. For instance, I am personally upset about our railway stations from Lagos to Ibadan being turned to names. And of course, they will throw in Orishinka's name, and then that's an important for the politicians to get the names of those places which are part of our geography that Toye town, it became to something that nobody recognizes. So I think we should be left alone. In fact, President Randle was very cautious about maybe a weekend ago when he met people from the University of OAU, the whole council, and he said he's very, very wary of naming things after him, and that he's even afraid that one day the ground steps out to the name Orishinka ground, and then he'll be stepping on himself. So I think that it's part of history and that should be left and preserved for posterity.
Thank you so much. Question from. So I think we should have numbers so that we do not trample on anybody's rights. Let's start with him. One. There's someone from Sterling. Okay, please let's start with him and then we'll come to you.
Good evening, everyone. I will try to put my questions in way it is. Number one, let the AC work next time. If we are celebrating what we shouldn't be. So I've listened to you guys a lot. And TK, I met you a couple of times and I was happy to see. I'm happy that same meeting. I think for me, I think we need to change the narrative. I think it's not in our culture to preserve things. It's not about environment, it's about our views, it's about so many things. And you recall when we had a conversation, I was saying that cinematography or documentary like this are ways of reaching the country. Because the people that are behind, all they know is that TV we used to be our Independence Day celebration where students dream to go and march. They've gone into either experience or Rema or their concerts. So we need more of these to tell the story. So TK, what I'm asking is that how do you see cinematography pushing the boundaries of this history to the new generations? I have a daughter who is in university and they are completely detached from my world. Their world is outside them. They don't even know what it means. So if you ask simple questions like Bella, they don't know. Things like Abela, they don't even know. Now talk about more things like what the hell is this? So how do we use cinematography to push more of the stories? Because in the African tradition, stories are like they are being told from one generation to the other. But there seems to be a big disconnect within this last generation and this new generation. And the prediction is that if this goes on, in the next 50 to 30 years, we'll have a different entire culture around. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Cinematography is just a part of the whole thing. For instance, the present generation, how can you becoming a filmmaker, for instance? I don't see how anyone can be a filmmaker without reading. Where are the books? Our children, are they reading? If they are reading at all, what are they reading about? So it starts from all of that. But on the other hand, they are born digital natives. I can remember that I was 30 years old before I could own one phone. It was analog, and my friend who worked at the P&T or communication center said that I should hold a party because he said I'm one of the lucky 700,000 people in Nigeria who own a phone. But everyone here, everybody has a mobile phone now. These are not ordinary phones, these are smartphones. Even to show young people, I did Yoruba Beyond Borders, a documentary across the Republic, shot with 2 mobile phones. So the cinematography sounds big. No, it's here. So why? I don't know why. What are the young people doing with what they have? By now, I was lucky because I was culturally and socially aware from a young age, say that from 14, but now they have access to the internet, they have everything. Then perhaps all that energy should be probably channeled. First of all, to get them thinking about using what they have to document and tell stories. When I made Tunde, I put it out that has anybody ever photographed anyone who had been a victim of murder? And then I advertised and said, if anybody knew of a story that was developing somebody who had been murdered, they should call me or rush there, to actually document it. Most of even the taboos and most of the negative aspects of our culture, we have no excuses anymore. You can simply just go and just use your mobile phone to do it. And YouTube has even made it very easy for young people because they have made starting an account and earning money on YouTube very, very easy for young people. First of all, you needed to have 1,000 subscribers. You change it to 500. And then you can do it with anything you lay your hands on. So I think the institutions should look at if they are consciously want these children to know about their history and culture and all that. I think you should really start on that. But chances are that if you have a story to tell or anything to do, there are certainly tools for you to express yourself.
You have a question, sir?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm barrister, I'm a place and fasting. I'm also a poet. My first, second, and third degree is literature, and I went to study law. I teach at Wesley University, Ondo. I remember in 1979 there was an advert in which the University of Ife wanted people to apply for a certificate course in theatre art, and I applied. And when we got to do our hall, they told us to choose whatever we wanted to do, whether script writing or acting or staging or costume. I chose writing, script writing. Eventually they performed a mime, and they told us, those of us who were coming to script writing, to develop a script on the basis of the mime. Professor Wole Soyinka was the person coordinating the audition. I hadn't learned much about African drama at that time. So I started writing the Elizabethan drama, Shakespeare, 5 acts, 5 scenes. Before I could finish, time was off. I didn't get the admission. So when I was going to write my JAM, my first choice was University of Calabar, because it's English and literary studies. Benin second, Ife was the last, even though I'm from Ondo. And everybody, all my parents are from Ondo, and everybody thought Ife should be your first choice where you could be taken. Anyway, I was taken to Calabar. I became editor of Prime at the age of 34. What I'm saying is that I had an encounter with, right now I teach at Wesley University. I teach law, literature, philosophy, etc. The last time I had an encounter with our father, our mentor, our inspiration, Professor Tunde Kelani, I was at a conference, a literary conference, organized by University of Texas, Lubbock. That was where I watched The Dazzling Mirage. And it reminded me of a book of mine that is not with Professor Phil Vincent. I don't know whether Professor Vincent is late now. The play was written by James Baldwin. It was a stage adaptation of the autobiography of Malcolm X. Then I began to look at the possibility of developing theories relating to formalism, which is my area in literature, and that is life. And I put up a collected poem, 4 books in one, a copy of which I've just given to our father today as a complimentary copy to commemorate the 90 years of what I call the 9 decades of the forest fire. Now, having passed through Wole Soyinka's post-coloniality, Chinua Achebe, G.P. Clark, post-Soyinka, Femi Osofison, etc., Now, we are in contemporary Africa. I teach contemporary African novel and drama. Colonialism, formalism, queer theory, and whatever. How much are we doing, particularly filming a film, showing a film like this in the university? There's an issue here that was mentioned about Soyinka transforming School of Drama to Department of Theatre, and the university not recognizing that. For those of us who wrote to become editor in the media before we went back to the academia, we had that experience. Oh, he has written so much, he has done so much, so how does that? But we find out that the activity that actually took place outside the university system is the raw materials for which the university will found the theories on which they can interrogate cultures. So I want to express gratitude to God and to you, sir, for being there. When I watched The Dazzling Mirage, I said, let me watch this one again today and see what it is like. There's a lot of interrogation for the academic system. Universities have been, I work for Wesley University, newly established. The Nigerian university system is blooming all over the place. But how much are we producing the Soyinkas, the Osofisons, the Oshodares? How much are we getting the interface between the town and the gown effectively resonating regarding the curriculum of the universities? I am of the opinion that this is a contribution to that, in that direction, and that the Nigerian academia as well as the Nigerian media and cultural practice should borrow sufficiently from this outing. Thank you very much. Well, I was concerned when we start to cite example of advancement, perhaps in space and all of that. In fact, sometimes I listen to BBC and come across some of what they're thinking about. For instance, I was interested when some people are doing research on how to tap into a dream. That is, studying dreaming in such a way that you could continue your dream you had that yesterday, the following day to continue. Or you can even dial the kind of dream you will like when you go to bed. So I'm only what the is. And then one, for instance, said by listening to footsteps, some people have researched footsteps. You can tell by the vibration footsteps made to find the personality of the person and all of that. But here we have our own different priorities. And I always wondered how, in fact, we should commend Nudibo, how a country that cannot produce electricity can make things. Our own priorities are totally different. You know, so we have our own problem. There is enough for us. And I'm sadly disappointed in the industry when, particularly socially political at this time, things are like this. And we haven't even found two things that have been banned from asking questions on querying the leadership and all of this. You know, but as we are, maybe people are content with therapy. Or people don't tell me, yes, let's just laugh now. And then we worry with that kind of things. But for me, these are the university people. As you know, President Jonathan Hayes has put it very well that TK didn't have a university education, but he gave himself enough liberal education. So over to you, university.
I think you should dimension it. I'm curious about the Nigerian university. And as you can see in the movie, in the documentary, that bias for the creative still remains in the Nigerian university. No matter how creative you are, 60 years in film, 60 years as a dramatist, 60 years as a writer, you can't teach without a PhD. You know, no matter the vast experience. As a young boy, I watched Shaworede and I knew that Shaworede was a classic. I knew it was a classic. I knew this man had to teach, you know, had to teach somewhere, had to share that experience somewhere in a class. And because that man, that great man does not have a PhD, you have to push his vast knowledge outside the university. How do you produce a Shoyinka? How do you produce a Shoyinka if you don't bring the Kelanis into that space to teach? You know, so for me, we are still fooling ourselves. I don't have a PhD, but confidently, I'm on the editorial board of the Punch newspapers. Maybe in a couple of years, I should teach media, but if I don't have a PhD, I won't be able to teach media. You know, so that bias he's been a lawyer for more than 20 years, 25 years. You know, bring practical, real-time experience to class. You know, some universities, private universities like Pan-African University, they are doing it, and that's why I bestow the professorship on you today. You know, yes, I bestow it on you today. And I hope that universities take it seriously to bring people who have practical, vast knowledge to class. That is how it should be done. So would you like to say anything to that?
Sorry, someone wants to ask a question there.
A wonderful documentary, very enlightening, very entertaining as well. Thank you, Uncle TK. Good to see you again. Thank you, Sterling Bank, as well. There's a very quick question to do with research. I saw the newspapers being shown in the documentary, and I was in Ibadan. Just did earlier this year, researching a project from 1955, from 1961, and the archives have deteriorated. I'd imagine in 3-4 years' time, it's just going to be in pieces. So I'm wondering, where did these pristine papers come from, even though they were from like 69, 68? So I'd like to know that, please.
Yes, Kola has actually been on this project for many years, even though the film was eventually made this year. But he's been on the project for years now. He himself had worked across different, he had worked in Oxford, University Press, he had bought the logo, he had bought the British library. So you understand. So he's worked across all of those, and he's done research across time. To get all these source materials. Other than that, in fact, what he has also done, which is related to this, is that currently I think he's got like kind of rights to the back copies of black authors. One of the most important journals to come out of Africa, cultural journals to come out of Africa, and he's going to be doing some work on that. Now, why these things are important is that we can then go back and begin to mine these things to actually begin to see where we were at that time, the thought process of people who are writing, the change that they were looking for, and now they made, and now eventually they made their impact. So that's very important. But what you saw here, took many years, and because the nature of his work also gave him some privileged access to some of those things, he was able to do them.
Any other comment? Because we are about to close. Okay. One more.
Good evening. My name is Toye. I went to UI. I am an anthropologist. And you mentioned something that the University of Ibadan does not understand the weight of responsibility they have. They do understand. The problem is that they do not care. And there I say things have to be done to force them to care. And it happens in different things, not just, but especially in architecture, for instance. The tower that has a clock beside Trenchard, you're supposed to be the tallest point in one, you're supposed to be able to see from everywhere. But around maybe 2016, they made the surrounding buildings higher, so it lost the tower. Different things like that, clear heritage park, it's called heritage park. And then now we have Ebrohimie Road. So I think, since you're a lawyer, I don't know what can be done in the way of policy to actually force them to pay attention to these things. So architectural conservation, to force universities, to force different places. Like if this structure is in some way plays a role in the history of Nigeria, some way plays a role in the history of the arts, in preservation, like it's an important cultural structure. They should be forced to preserve it. We shouldn't wait for the good graces or for the, I don't know, the desire of whoever is in charge to do it. So I don't know if there is something in the way of policy that can be pushed, not just from the point of view of professionals, but from the point of view of regular Nigerians, like no one can help all these things. Thank you.
I don't know why you don't want to see anything. We are all victims of extended tyranny. Yes, we are all victims of extended tyranny. And yes, lawyers must talk, but all of us must talk. It's a collective. I think you should say something.
Let me just say briefly. I mean, if I piggyback on what TK just said. Some things are the least of our problems, and that's unfortunate. That we have to say, things about heritage don't seem to be important. Let me say something. For example, Nigeria currently doesn't have a national policy on culture. The last one that was drafted was in the 80s. There have been attempts to draft many. I, in my small time on it, I've been involved in like 2 efforts. I was involved sometime in 2010, which went nowhere. One went as far as the Federal Executive Council, and before it then moved no further. A few weeks ago, I was in another committee. I'm hoping the current minister is serious, and another committee that is preparing, and it seems serious at least. That's how it seems when you're doing it, and so heritage is a whole, part of that. You designate building sites, even intangible cultural heritage, so that they are not just wiped out. How do you designate it? What does designating mean? Because currently we actually have, we have an heritage authority today, and there are sites that are designated as cultural sites and all of that. It just doesn't mean anything. Elsewhere, in the world, it will be criminal to go do anything against it, and then not even government can. So for you to do anything, you probably will need to go to parliament and then say, look, you want to take down the Statue of Liberty, so then come and tell the public why you want to do it, so those are the things that but I think for now what we can do as civic people is that we can continue to actually mobilize. So for example, I was happy that Professor Shuda returned the event that was used to, which is why I blame myself. I should have finished, I hope that I would have finished my essay and published it by now, but it was meant to just be celebrated the 10th anniversary of his award. Yeah. No, not the Commonwealth Award, the National Merit Award. But because people like that understand, they have a sense of occasion. He understood that he couldn't just go there. I mean, just a couple of days before, he saw in the news that the heritage site was. So he thought that he should make that. And he came on social media and all of that, but he didn't go beyond that. In fact, I started writing my essay a couple of days after that. That what should happen is that we should let galvanize. So my essay should have come out, in the either a newspaper or a journal, an online journal, and a couple of people should have responded. And by now, the authorities of the University of Ibadan should have the heat under them. But the same way that I draw my essay, like halfway through, and I say, I'll come back to it. I'm sure a number of people who also would have done something, didn't do anything about it. But we need to be more civic-minded, while we wait for the big policy to form and all of that. Because in any case, the policy is also going to be implemented, and it's also going to be, we are going to also be, the ones that are custodians.
Yeah, I think we are short. We have limited time. I think we just have to make it very short. Not 2-3 minutes.
Very short. Thank you very much.
I think it's a very good, great concern that you have expressed. But you see, when you are in a particular divide and you see what people say, the so-called policy makers, they are Nigerians like us, all right? They are the same intellectually gifted people like us. But it's like when you are a lawyer, for instance, when I'm talking about intellectual property, what I'm looking for from the junction is different from what you are talking about. When I became the editor of Crime Report, I was just 34. My magazine was circulating 120,000 copies per week in Nigeria. Now, when you use the advocacy of the fact that I was a former journalist, now a lawyer, a member of NBA, I use that to enlighten my crowd. That's exactly why we need a forum like this. Free access to media, cultural trade, free access, unfettered. And for every event, avenue like that, we need to give them time like our father said. We have to give them. It depends on the person who is in government. I contested to go to National Assembly in 2007 in Bajabian, and if I had won, I would have been a speaker of the House in Sunday. But the question is that those people, how do they find their way into government, into policy making? It is in the process of this kind of thing that we have the privilege of making the contribution. Thank you very much. But as we are here, we want to appreciate you, sir, that this kind of job, and members of the intellectual community and public intellectuals like you, we appreciate what you are doing. And for as long as you get yourself involved, you don't say it's a holiday, you don't stay away, you are here, you are helping the cause of the system. Thank you.
So on behalf of Open Society Foundation, Kora, and everybody else, Olongo Africa, Kora, Open Society Foundation, Sterling Bank, and
all the crew of the movie.
Yeah, and all the crew of the movie, the cast and crew of the movie. We want to say thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for engaging this movie. And I hope that this will be the beginning of great conversations. And from there, we can continue to talk about how we want to